being a woman, if you hang out with boys so much, you're gonna start acting like a boy, and they have a fear of you getting pregnant when they're not ready, and then they have a fear of you not getting pregnant and actually literally becoming boys with the boys. Their fears are endless, and all this is imposing. It's saying, okay, I'm scared of you getting pregnant, you're a child, so let me impose something. Oh, I'm scared of you thinking, oh, now the boys are your boys, you're boys like them.
Yeah,
you'd be a lesbian. Hey everybody, how are you doing? This is Mary Liz, and I'm here with
Pamoyo,
and we are here to bring you a conversation about conversion therapy. But really, to break down, is it really conversion therapy? Is it conversion practices? What's the differences? What are some of the effects? And all that type of stuff. And I'm excited for this conversation because conversion practices are a normal occurrence. We've normalized them. There's so much that we do, and we assume that's not conversion practice because we've perceived conversion practices as very extreme activities like concentration camps held by some churches and religious spaces, or is it groups that come together to hold these concentration camps, or it could be being taken to a place where you are isolated. When it comes to lesbian, it's things like homophobic rape, where women who identify as lesbians then are organized to get either gang raped or raped by people that they know from the same homes as them. And all these things are part of conversion practices, yes. And these are some of the extremes of conversion practices, yes. But we are about to delve into what conversion practices look like, even in the softer, most simplest perspectives of it. And I'm happy to be here with you, Omuyu. So, conversion practices / conversion therapy, as they like to call it.
Yeah. I think it's important to note that it doesn't necessarily aim at someone's sexual orientation.
Yeah.
It also goes as far as their gender identity, their gender expression, to the small things of how you actually interact with the rest of the world.
Yeah. And we all interact with the world, which again, like I said, conversion practices are so many. And while queer people are the most affected by conversion practices, everyone is also affected because then, first of all, we don't even think, for so long, women in Africa in general have not been able to be left alone and have not been left comfortable to say, I don't want children, for example. Immediately you say that, then you begin being advised. Everyone is speaking in your ear, you must, you should, because that's the only role you have in life. That's the only role you have in life, and all that type stuff. And people don't see that as conversion, because then there's who you know you are, there's what you know you want, there's what you know you're capable of doing, because then giving birth to a child is not just giving birth to a child. It's understanding your ability to raise a child, and you already maybe have decided, I don't have the capacity or capability to raise a child. But now, because of conversion practices, you are convinced to do it. It would be a man who would convince you by getting you pregnant without knowing. It would be the society organizing marriages. That's why we have very many, in our traditions, we have organized marriages. But that is like some of the ways in which we don't consider as conversion practices. And then now when it comes to queer people, it magnifies, it becomes more. And earlier we were touching on that. It's how even when you're growing up, sit like a girl, talk like a girl, or sit like a boy, talk like a boy. Don't carry your hands like that. You're behaving like a girl. You have girlish behaviors. If a boy wants to play with dolls, boys don't play with dolls. That's are you gay?
Yeah.
And they, most of the time, they never used the words, but like the insinuations were so clear and out there. It was like tone. Yes.
Yeah.
And same for girls. For girls is always confusing even to me, because then you grow up being told stay away from boys, and then stay away from boys, be around girls, and then at some point you are too much with girls, be around boys, but also don't be so much with the boys,
because you don't want to end up pregnant.
don't
And
end up
you
pregnant.
bring me
Or
the child.
also, being a woman, if you hang out with boys so much, you're gonna start acting like a boy, and they have a fear of you getting pregnant when they're not ready, and then they have a fear of you not getting pregnant and actually literally becoming boys with the boys. Their fears are endless, and all this is imposing. It's saying, okay, I'm scared of you getting pregnant, you're a child, so let me impose something. Oh, I'm scared of you thinking, oh, now the boys are your boys, your boys like them.
Yeah, you're
You'd
one
be a
of
lesbian,
them.
you'd be like, how am I supposed to live my life constantly operating on what you fear? What about my fears? And do my fears even revolve around this issue you consider issues?
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. There is an obsession to some extent of how society wants to condition children
Yeah.
growing up. Could say something as small as say a small boy who is scared of a dog. The first thing this child will be told is, why are you scared of the dog and you're a
You're
boy?
a man.
Not the whole concept of you are a human being who experiences fear. Who can be, you're vulnerable to these feelings of fear because
Yes.
this is a scary dog.
Yeah.
And by virtue of that, you need to be scared. This whole thing has been sort of created into
Yeah.
this package that you can never really fulfill
Yes.
unless you bend over backwards
Backward.
and break your back.
And
Yeah, because nobody will bend over backwards trying to prove this point that I am like you and come out the other side being okay. Your back will experience some hurt.
And I'm glad you've highlighted that on being okay generally, and we don't talk enough. Overall, I think when it comes to mental health, apart from mental health conditions that they can be genetic, you can be born with them. For the most part, when you're speaking about things like PTSD, it's literally the repercussions of what the world has done to you.
Yeah.
And most of the time, people don't understand why a lot of queer people struggle with anxiety and PTSD. Is because of the things that have been done to them, okay? Because we live in a society that is constantly telling you suppress. It's constantly telling you can be seen, but not the way you want. You can only be seen the way we want to see
Because
you.
if I identify a certain way and I go the extra step of expressing my identity in that way, then I'll walk outside my house and someone will be like, look at that person, they look like a man. Or look at that person, they're trying to be a woman. Automatically, the next time I will walk out of my house, the first thing that will come to my mind is how many people will tell me that, I'm trying to be a man, or I am trying to be quote unquote a woman.
And the anxiety of it all, because I think now that I'm out, I'm proud, I'm happy with myself. There is no part about my sexuality and my identity that I question, other than the everyday fluid nature of everyone's sexuality and identity. And it's funny because then the never-ending anxiety is and anxiety inducing cycle is because every time you want to step out, you really have to think about it. Where am I going today? Especially with the nature of work that I do. Where am I going today? Who am I going to see? That informs everything you do, whether you wear a dress or whether you wear trousers, whether you reveal any part of your skin, or like, it's crazy to think about, and it's very numbing because it's sad. A human being should not be thinking about that. You're actually coming into a world, it should be so simple and fun and easy.
If on top of the constant worry of capitalism, systems that aren't working, if I have to worry about how people will perceive me, and from that perception how they will treat me, then there is no way I will exist in this life without having mental health challenges. And once the challenges step in, the drug abusing comes in.
Because you have to be at some point where you can be able to cope.
Precisely. I need to be numb so that the next time someone tells me something cruel, I don't take it to heart.
And because I also like saying the thing about all this soft conversion practices is that people don't realize the hate that goes towards queer people ends up in deaths. you know, most of the time when we speak about people being threatened, people being violated, and I'm not saying either is better, I'm just saying most of the time it happens on the premises of, oh, bullied at school, and then, but now, just the same way we are living in a time where we are speaking about femicide, where we are really questioning why women are no longer surviving in relationships, that we had stories of divorce, we had stories of women leaving their marriages and their unions, and they come with stays and everything. And now we no longer have those, we have women dying in those relationships. It's the same way for the longest time for queer people. It's not just hate, because if you just hated me, even a queer person, there's someone they hate. But then, just because I hate you doesn't mean I should do anything to harm you.
And for us, me going out of my way to fund my hate into a whole project or program.
Exactly. And even the reason we have to position ourselves in such a way that we have to do this work that is funded is because we are trying to do work against people who, funny, we even sometimes sponsor the hate we receive. Because then, and we will touch on this a bit, but queer people who are religious and Christians who go to churches, you tithe, you give offerings,
to tell you that,
and this church is the one that is homophobic, and without even realizing, because it's such a mind fuck, you're actually sponsoring your own abuse. And these people will only remember that your queer is a bad thing when they want to attack you. They will never remember anything about your queerness when you're giving them money, when you're giving them your time, when you're volunteering. Exactly, because they have something they're getting from you. Or the common one, when you become a member of the society that is doing well, because we live in a world, we call them society for a reason. We exist by being social. We form social circles. We interact with people according to interests and all that kind of stuff. And if you become a very successful member of the society within the social circles that you've built, people look at you as someone who can provide, can care for. And that's in those moments, people begin forgetting about your queerness. Your queerness is only a hindrance when we want to kill you, which is, I think, the saddest thing about conversion practices in general, that you try to make me conform, in this case using religion, in this case using education, because what business did our teachers have talking about queerness for kids? Literally nobody had business talking about.
Your work is to teach biology.
Just teach biology.
Why are you telling me about the LGBTQIA? What's your business?
And if we are gonna touch on LGBTQIA, then do the comprehensive education, comprehensive sexuality education, CSE in schools, so that people, like these pupils, learn everything.
Like there's structured
not just learning the hate for queer people, just learning everything about sexuality. Learning that, because when you really read about sexuality, when you really read about identity, there's no one way to have a sexuality and an identity. There's a spectrum of it, and male and female, she and her, woman and man sit on the extreme ends of the spectrum, but there's so many things right here in the middle that nobody sees. How do you assume a person who is right here in the middle identifies? You don't have to go through a biology class to know that, because if you're the opposite of me, there's something that makes it the opposite. You don't just wake up. Even in science, there's molecules, there's all these things they use to define how energy, transfers from one point to another and all that kind of stuff. Same as human beings.
But then the table, the metal table, how there's two sides of the extreme. Like there's the positives, the negatives, and then there's the in-between. Or metals that don't fit into the structures of the positives and the negatives. So just taking that information from chemistry and then bringing it into real life, you would expect the same, because if atoms and molecules and metals behave in a certain way, then why I, as a human being who is very complex in my own way, not have like
more complex than those metals, atoms and molecules?
How comes I am not allowed to exist outside the quote-unquote dictated parameters
and norms that have been created, which is absolutely ridiculous when you really think about it.
Because what do you mean I can't climb a tree because I'm a girl? Kwani I don't have legs? See, I'm seeing
like
legs.
It's a tree and it's me. And the only thing standing in between us is whether I want to climb that tree or not.
Precisely.
And in this moment I want to climb that tree. Can I just climb the tree?
Why do you have to look at my gender in the activity of climbing the tree? It's it's not the gender that's climbing, it's me as a person who's climbing the tree. It has nothing to do with what I was assigned at birth or otherwise.
And also another one of those soft conversion practices is people feeling entitled to queer people's identities and sexuality. We grow up just like everyone else, not having to watch straight people telling us I'm straight. Okay? We never hear that. We never hear that as a necessity. It's only until when we begin experiencing our sexualities and our identities, then all of a sudden we've been catapulted into a place where you must come out. Because then if you don't, there's all these assumptions that have been built around you. There's all these expectations that have been put on you that somehow you must meet. I'm your mother, I want to have grandchildren. I swear, you being my mother and having grandchildren are not related.
How do the two correlate?
These two things, these two things don't relate at all. But you now, because of that, and to have children, because then they will want you to have children so that they become grandmas. But when you have a child, say one child with another guy, and then that guy is toxic and you leave him, you have a child with another one, they now change your name. It's no longer, I love my grandchildren, but you are a whole.
You're sleeping around. Why
and
are
it
you
doesn't
sleeping
make sense.
around?
Like, when you really look at it, all these things don't make sense. The reason queer people are affected the most is because queer people are forced into being more expressive about their identities. Because then we are also taught our identities are not a normal thing. They don't occur. Colonialism and white people, to be precise, imported, managed to show up in our countries, lying to us that this is unheard of. But while they were doing that, they were erasing very important parts of our cultures and norms, things that were, yes, maybe not talked about so much, but they were there. And the reason most of the time people didn't talk about them is because there was no need to talk about them.
Because it was normal.
It's a thing.
Like
some people are like
we
that.
all drink water. Like we do know we drink water. I really don't have.
Why must I explain why I'm drinking water, or why I don't deserve water because I'm queer?
I'm so gay and fruity. I'm never thirsty.
I'm never thirsty. I recharge automatically. The fruitiness is like.
And to think that it adds to the minority stress.
Yes.
Because already as a queer person, I'm being affected by all these things: financial instability, people who are hating on me for no particular reason, bad family that doesn't want to talk to me, etc., etc. And then now you have to give me the responsibility of I educate you about certain things. Like, I am already so stressed. Now you want me to be your lecturer, your teacher, your therapist, to explain to you. It's like recently I met someone and they were like, do you go to church? I was like, no, I don't go to church, I'm not religious. And then they were like, why? But I saw you with the rainbow bracelet. Is it because you're queer? And I was like, number one, my religion and my queerness, none of your business. I'm not really sure why you brought it up. And number two, even if I was queer and I wanted to worship the devil,
what you going to do about it?
What will you do about it? Because unless I am coming to church with a rainbow and being like, this is my cross, you know? Yeah, so I think it adds on to the minority stress so much. And if I do, because even if I do experience like a conversion practice, like a practice that is aimed at actual conversion, if I survive, I have to educate people on how I survived, number one. After surviving, how did I change? Number two. And number three, I need to equip other people with skills that I had to learn for myself on what to do once they go through such an experience.
Or also so that they can be able to avoid such an experience from happening. Because like even with conversion practices, it's not like it happens overnight. It's things that are said to you repeatedly over and over and over. And because it's human nature to interact with other human beings, initially you'll probably not hear or listen to as much as is being said to you, but over time it catches up with you because a human being is just a human being. Insecurities are there, self-doubt is there, and sometimes it's not self-doubt because you doubt yourself, it's self-doubt because of the many times you have to hear the same thing being said over and over and over again. And so, of course, we've broken down even including the effects, and I think people don't realize, because then another thing that science is very good at doing is getting data. They get data about queer people on things like suicide, on things like drug abuse, on things like mental health. But where they draw the line in a country like ours is getting data about how many queer people do we have in the country, so that we can actually budget for them.
Yeah.
And so by virtue of having all that information, one of the things that is one of the scariest outcome of conversion practices is a lot of queer people commit suicide, because it's a constant fight between yourself and the world.
It's a cycle that sort of never ends.
Yes. And no matter how right you are, because you live, you're the one who lives with yourself every day. Every new day, you're the first person to meet yourself. Yet every new day, you show up to a world that has all these expectations, yet they've not even met you. Because the idea of, because I've met you 5 years ago, I know you, is always interesting to me, because then it takes away from the real opportunity where even I met the me I am today morning.
Yeah.
So I promise you, there's nothing that I know before now, after now, and everything I know before now was an experience that I'm choosing to take as a lesson and be better prepared for the next second that I know nothing about. And so it's ridiculous that I'm having to show up and you've already preempted who I am. You already assume you know who I am. And you already have all these expectations on me. And now I'm stuck in a cycle of constantly trying to catch up. Because not only am I having to catch up with myself every day and every minute, now I have to catch up with the expectations that you formed even before you knew I'll be alive today, bruh. Nobody knew. I didn't know. You didn't know. I don't believe God exists, so that nobody knew, quite literally. But you're here having expectations on you. And then queer people now have to struggle with that. And because of that struggle is why cases of suicide are so high. And a lot of time it's blamed on queer people. That if they were not queer, they'd be okay. If they were not queer, they wouldn't struggle mentally. But the truth is, the reason they're struggling mentally is because you people have everything to say about their queerness that is negative. Nobody thrives when they're constantly being told you're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong. Even the system of complimenting we're given, even when we're in school, and criticizing, you are told, criticize, say something nice, and then criticize. Or say something nice, put the critic in the middle, and then say something nice as well. Do a sandwich, because no one will survive if they constantly hear. Even I am a very confident person, and that's why I avoid people who, pick out on how I exist as a person, because regardless of how strong, courageous, confident, and upstanding I am as a person, I do believe if I continue being around these people, they will corrode on how I exist as a person. Because if I wake up and the first 5 people I see, all of them say, you're such an ugly person. I know I'm not an ugly person, but I'm still the same person who grew up thinking I'm very ugly, because I grew up in a home that I was constantly reminded because I had terrible breakouts, teenage hit really hard, and I'm struggling with all these things. And my confidence is shattered, not because it should be shattered, but because I come from a home that points out all these things that are supposed to be considered flaws. But then I grow up and I realize, oh my goodness. And now for queerness it's like that, but now it's constant. You're hearing it from your loved ones, you're hearing it from your work, you're hearing it from school, and then you're hearing it from a stupid world that knows nothing about you. Strangers on social media, immediately you post I'm queer, everyone feels entitled to come and tell you about God and all this. And why would you expect a person to not be pressured so much that they can't handle the pressure? They succumb to the pressure, because then that is what causes, ultimately that's what causes.
You blame them for succumbing to the pressure, whilst you created the very conditions that brought about the pressure.
While also saying, you could have talked to us if they were not okay.
So I come and tell you I'm gay so that you tell me God will God will curse me.
Lead me to my early grave. What do you mean? And people don't understand this, and I think that's the most frustrating thing. And fundamentally the reason for this conversation is most most importantly, to remind queer people, because I think, and I think there will never be enough reminders, because there's never enough hate, and there's no hate like Christian love. They use God to sugarcoat love in there, but in reality it's hate. So when you're constantly being told God loves you, God hates the sin.
God loves everyone.
God loves you, God hates the sin. And I'm like, in whose book did we sit and decide it's a sin? Because ultimately, even the conversations and the writing about LGBTQ people in the Bible is not from a point of sin.
Yeah.
It's not from a point of sin. And what is considered a point of sin, for example, Sodom and Gomorrah is the common one. Sodom and Gomorrah was this God's anger towards men who are trying to have non-consensual sex with other men. It's the non-consensual sex that God was angry about. So God is saying no rape, and now you say it's because it's other men? No. At this point, God was literally telling you, bruh, you can have sex with whoever, but just ask for consent. Because then, at the end of the day, women were also affected by that.
Precisely.
And now you decide to sell it, and I think this is the thing that frustrates me. Even like, I don't give Christians time of day. I don't consider teaching them, because first of all, the interpretation of the Bible is not theirs to carry. It's what they've been taught and what they've heard. The same things we've heard.
And they've been told by people who hated them.
Yes.
As Africans.
Yes.
So there's no way someone who hates you will be the person who validates you.
It's impossible.
Choose a side. Are you hating me or are you validating me?
And while a person who invalidates you can change and become a person who knows and affirms you, this is not a journey that has to happen in your presence.
Precisely.
You can leave them so that they become better, and then if they do become better, even if I'm not the one who experiences the better side, it would be nice to meet other queer people and they're like, but I interacted with so and so, and they were telling me how they've changed that understanding a couple. That's okay. Does it have to be to me? But now you don't expect a group of people being treated like that constantly to not struggle. And so this conversation is essentially to remind queer people that like you're good the way you are. And a lot of times you'll be convinced that that's not true. Why? Because they benefit from that. Churches are literally founded on hate.
And the parameters that people are using to measure if you are enough were literally created to be against you.
Yes.
There's no way you can compete with something that isn't level.
Yes.
There is no winning in such a field.
You are set up for doom from the jump.
Precisely. And if you want to play in the same field, the same rules, it's going to take a lot.
It is.
So much.
It is going to take a lot, and sadly it's going to take a lot from you. Yeah. Forget the resources, forget all these other things. It's going to take so much from within the core of your existence as a human being that of course you will give up at some point, because also the expectation of queer people or just black people in general to be strong, because we expected to be strong a lot. And I'm like, strong. No, don't abuse me and then expect strength from me.
And also that's why I disagree when someone when I tell someone my story and they're like, you are so strong, you're so resilient.
No,
I'm like, but I never wanted to
this
be
shit
strong,
broke the fuck out of me. Sometimes I'm curious who I would be if I didn't experience all these things.
If my story
like,
didn't
can
have
I be queer
without
and
the
not have this pain? I can't go back in time, but if I could, that's the version I'll try to go back to. That I don't change anything about my life right now, but apart from the things that brought me so much pain, apart from the things that made me attempt suicide so many times, apart from the things that rendered me homeless because of my queerness, apart from the things that have made me lose my family, you don't think that is conversion practice? You're literally doing things that are making me change every significant part of my existence. And then you're expecting me not to be affected. Who do you think I am? Where do you think I find that strength from? There's no strength in me to be able to. No human being is capacitated like that to be able to be strong like that. And so expecting it from queer people is not only harmful, is what is making queer people like even consider all these other things that they're going through. Drug abuse, they get into drugs to cope. Because when you really think about it, how much is therapy?
I mean, if I am paying a session, say 2,000
550.
I will go for the.
I have 4 bottles.
Yeah.
I have 4 bottles.
That's a whole weekend of drinking.
Or even if it's per week, I have 4 bottles that I can spare. Week. A month is sorted. And you're telling me I should go to therapy, and every session I pay 2,000. The first time I arrive, my therapist tells me you're broken, bro. We need to work on this.
It's not a one-stop fix-it-all.
And at the beginning, you go very often.
Yeah.
Later on, when the more you learn about yourself, the more you understand yourself, the more you understand your traumas and the things that made you need therapy to begin with, then you begin to become better at handling everything. But at the beginning, I remember when I started therapy, I'd go to therapy 3 times a week. Because you can't imagine a day going without talking to somebody. You're losing your shit.
Yeah.
You just look at yourself in the mirror and you start crying. You look at your hands and you start crying. You wonder what everything is
so gay.
And so when you really think about it, it's not that queer people, and also who's to say straight people don't drink? You see, it's easy to blame queer people of using drugs to cope. But like straight people are doing that all the time.
It's really easy to see the mistakes of someone if you're constantly looking at them and waiting for them to
do a mistake.
Yeah, because if I am not in your business, how exactly will I know that you drink a lot?
How exactly will I know?
Yeah. So to me, I honestly think that society here in general just waits for a moment where they are like, you're queer. We always knew this would happen. Not because of life circumstances, but because you're queer as a person. And by virtue of your queerness, you deserve every bad thing that is coming.
And I think as we wind down the conversation, the aspect of shame as well, and how it harms a lot of queer people, because then you are shamed into submission, you are shamed into conformity. There's a lot. I think the biggest conversation that normally comes up is, for example, down low gay men, or even queer people who get into very cis heterosexual unions, because there's so much shame that is tied to your identity. And I remember in 2018 when I had come out and I had been thrown out of home, and I remember I was talking to some of my friends trying to ask for money, because at this point I have nothing and I want to find a place to stay. And I remember a big part of me that did not want to go to do the whole 9 yards of explaining is because I was ashamed. I was made to feel shame. Because I remember one of the things my mom said was, I did not give birth to a thing like you come back to my house when you're no longer that thing. To feel like my humanity is no longer worth it because I'm queer, it comes with a huge level of shame. You feel shame, and this shame is so shameless. It shows up in weird places. People who don't know you, they can tell you're not okay, but you're ashamed to say what is not okay with you. Because most, if not all, of this shame is shame that was never ours to carry. It was never ours to carry.
Yeah, because I remember when I was doing therapy and shadow work for shame, what I realized at the end of all that process was I had so much shame and it was never mine to carry. Like the only thing I had to carry for myself was acceptance, compassion, and love. Everything else that I learned in between, the shame, the guilt, the constant self-doubt and insecurity of wondering if I am ever going to be enough, that was never mine to carry.
It was never.
It was other people's shame and insecurities projected on me based on this thing that they assumed to be quote-unquote wrong. Because I do not think being queer is wrong. This is our normal. This is my normal.
Science says it's not wrong. And if science says it's not wrong and we all go off of science with everything, then I think we can. And again, like you said, we have no business carrying this shame. But shame is such a capitalistic tool. People don't realize. People are shamed into so many things. People are shamed into parenting children. Like quite literally, you are shamed until you're like, let me just give birth to a child and so that people can get off my case. People are shamed into marriages. Oh, let me just find someone and marry this person, because then they will leave me alone. They will not talk about me anymore.
Because I remember when I first told like my birth family that I don't want kids or to be married. The first thing I was asked was, and especially the part of giving birth, was siulizaliwa. And I'm like, okay, I was born, but why are you shaming me?
That was not my doing.
Like it's like I was there planning with my parents how they would bring me into this world.
Didn't plan. Two people decided to have sex and had me.
Precisely.
I have also right to decide to have sex, to have someone or to not have someone.
And then the bit about not getting married, I remember it all stemmed from the fact that I didn't want someone to dictate to me how to do chores. And the first thing I was asked was, is this how you're going to behave in your husband's house? A hypothetical man whom I've never met and I will never meet. I've already been shamed because of you.
Apparently, know how to cook, know how to do chores.
Not because I have a stomach for myself, but because there's a man somewhere who, if I don't have this skill, will starve. I'm like, starve and die.
As if hunger is gender. And that if a man cooks food, we will all never be full. It's so outrageous to think of this.
If that sufuria will talk to you and tell you, my man, put the tomatoes.
You said that and you reminded me there was a time I was using a matatu to go home. Then I get in, and because I was in the matatu first and I was sitting at the front of the driver's front, this guy comes in and I tell him I want to get out so that he goes in, and he tells me he's a man, he wants to sit on the window. I told him, sit in the middle. If we arrive where we are arriving and you become a woman, I'll pay you. I will pay you. Because how do you mean occupying a seat? You found me here.
Makes you feel more
by virtue of me being here first, I have a right to pick the seat I want to sit on. Now I've picked, I want this one, and somehow a seat emasculates you. There's a problem, and the problem is bigger than you being here, me being here, and sitting on the seat. And for queer people now, we are made to answer to that all the time, and the shame comes from that. There's all these expectations, and we are supposed to answer to that. We're supposed to feel shame because of that. We're supposed to operate on that shame all the time. And this is why, if you follow me on social media, you know one of the things I say is I'm shameless, I'm ungovernable, I'm unfuckwithable, I am a nudist. And one thing I've learned, the most important lesson, coming out has brought so much joy. Affirming myself has brought so much joy. But I think of all the things that I've achieved from just coming out and honoring myself is the freedom. Like, this year I'm practicing living with no inhibitions, because I know as a queer person you have so many inhibitions. You have to hold back a lot. You have to stop yourself from experiencing things that you'd want to experience because you're trying to protect yourself and you're trying to be safe. But this year I'm practicing in having no inhibitions, so that when I want to do something I just do it. And the more I inch closer and closer to what my ideal version of freedom is, the more I'm learning freedom really means if I died today, I lived. That I should not limit how I live today, because I might live, right now we are seated here, it's a public space, who knows, maybe someone is listening to us and waiting to target us, and maybe after here I'm going to be killed. It would suck if I sat here and I was like, let's not talk loudly because they're going to hear us. And then you get it. It's so, you don't think about that all the time, but because I've dared to unlearn the shame, to unlearn the expectation, to unlearn all these things that are put on me, and say, the burden of life I want to carry only is the burden I put on myself. That if I feel shame over something, let it be shame that is coming from within me, not shame that is coming from other people. Because if it's coming from anywhere other than from within me, I don't want it, I don't care for it. You do whatever you want with your shame, and I will not let you anywhere close to me, so that I can even feel the vibration of that shame.
It's like a few weeks ago I was watching something. This woman had died, and that thing they read at the funeral, at the eulogy. These people were as they were reading it, you could see how she had done everything for everyone else, but not for herself.
Not for her.
And in that moment, I remember just thinking, when I die, I want people to say that I was selfish. I was selfish because I refused to carry shame that wasn't mine.
Yes.
I was selfish because every time I speak, even if my voice is like shaking, every time I speak and I say that, you know what, I exist differently in this world and I will not be made to feel lesser than I am. Literally, I want you to say that I am selfish. The first line on that thing, I wanted to be Wamoyo, was so selfish. They chose themselves over and over again. Yeah.
You see, it's crazy, my brain works this way. But sometimes our politicians, I admire an aspect of them that is so audacious. Like they don't give a shit.
Yeah.
And that's why I have a culture of when these politicians die, I don't go on a role of celebrating them. I go on a role of finding out who was you. I remember when John Pombe Magufuli, and the parents really did him a number with the name, but hey, I'm a fighter. When John Pombe Magufuli died, a lot of people were like, we've lost president. No, you've not lost anything, bruh. This man came up with laws to oppress school-going girls who are victims of defilement and rape. This man made sure queer Tanzanians are not safe. This man deteriorated the economy. Why are you wishing
which part
rest
of
in
his
peace?
life exactly
Which
are you
peace?
celebrating?
He gave no one peace when he was alive. Wherever you are going, I don't care if people go somewhere, don't find peace. In fact, peace should be running. Peace
in the
should
opposite
be born
direction.
Today. You died today. Peace should be born today. You should miss each other like that in every cycle. And if reincarnation is true, the time you are reincarnating, peace should die. Peace should never find you ever again, because you never really did anything to be peace to anyone, to protect people, to be kind to people, to teach people to live together in harmony and in peace and in community, not because of silence, but really because of speaking when something is wrong, so that the harmony is achieved by saying, you did something wrong, don't do it again, and then we move on in peace. But you never did anything like that. And when I die, I want that. I want for people to look at and say, gosh, my Liz was a terrible person. Yes. And I'm sure by the time you were saying I'm terrible, you did something. Because I was not going to let it slide. I'm not known to, with all that I know about my queerness right now, with all that I know about my existence right now, I'm not known to let things slide. I let things slide so much. And people treated my existence as a home that has no honor. Everyone just comes and goes whenever they feel like. They trample on me, they step on me, and then they expect me to be like, I'm good. No,
you walked all over me. Thank you so much.
I'm not good, and trust me, I'm gonna fuck you up. And maybe if I die, you're gonna say Mary Liz was not a good person. And
oftentimes I've found that if someone is saying that you as a person are a bad person, it means they did something, you called them out for it, they felt uncomfortable, and they termed you as a bad person because you didn't stand for their bullshit.
Also, I have no business whatsoever being good to someone while being bad to myself. The only time I can be good to someone is if I've been sufficiently good to myself.
Precisely.
And so, to all queer people who are listening to this, it's easy to say you want to please, and I know circumstances change. I know there's very nuanced perspectives of this conversation. For example, you can't tell someone who is still a student to come out and all that kind of stuff, because then the compromise there could be, if they get the education, it will give them more leverage with freedom than they would if they didn't consider that. And I understand that, but I hope every day you remember that all the shame, all the things you're made to believe about your queerness is not really about you, it's about other people. And that honor yourself. Start small. Start by waking up and making sure the one affirmation that it is for that day, you make sure no one vandalizes that, nobody takes advantage of that. And it starts with very mundane things. It starts with
taking care of yourself.
If it's my meal time, I deserve to just sit and have my meal. Nobody needs to be talking to me, nobody needs to be sending me to do all this kind of stuff. So that eventually then you learn the world
also important.
Yes, and the world benefits more from your cup being full than when you're busy pouring from an empty cup, because it means you're giving the world nothing. You don't have anything and you're constantly pouring. But now when you pour into yourself, it's easy because the world now will tap into the overflow.
Precisely.
The cup
you
is
won't
overflowing.
Have to come back to.
Do you know why waterfalls are beautiful?
Yeah.
It's because there's always enough that is just going. But now you're constantly trying to be a seasonal river. Every time the more you're dry, the more you want to prove you're there. You don't have to prove anything. Lock yourself up and take time to just, sit with yourself, sit with everything that you're made to feel shame about, and ask yourself the thing you said, whose shame is it that I'm carrying? Is it my shame, or does it belong to another person? And always remembering as you change, because people think being queer is the big change. People don't realize experiencing your sexuality is a big change that everyone is going through every day. To remind yourself in every different experience that you're okay, you're good. Nobody has to tell you anything for you to know you're good. You're good the way you are, and that this conversation is meant to remind you that you are allowed to say no to some experiences, and you don't have to just always remember that your worth is not tied to how people see you, to anything whatsoever. The minute you were born, pro-lifers would say the minute you're conceived. But the minute you're born, you are worthy. You have deserved to have nothing but the most beautiful of a human experience. And also to just remember to say, this is for myself, the younger Mary Liz, but also for all younger queer people. And by younger here, I don't mean in age. By younger, I mean you're just coming into your sexuality, just coming into your identity. I am sorry that it has had to take shame, it has had to take suppressing, it has had to take guilt, it has had to take pain, it has had to take suicide ideations, it has had to take viewing yourself in a light that you don't even exude in your day-to-day life. I'm sorry that is happening, and that for all that it's worth, all these efforts we sit here to build are efforts so that we build a future for queer people that don't have to live in so much darkness to honor who they are.
Yeah, and I think the last thing that I would add is the work is difficult. The work to unlearn all these parts of ourselves that we had no business carrying is difficult. It's a lot of work, it's tiresome. There's times you'll feel like you don't really want to do it. But the most important thing to remember is after the work, it's such a beautiful place to be. The waking up to your home being yourself, waking up to your body being your home, being the place where you're feeling most safe. It's such a beautiful experience.
Very irreplaceable.
And nobody can take that away from you unless you give them the power.
It has been a relief.
And
we will see you in the next of many of these to come. Thank you so much.